Okay, it's all yours. It's all yours if you want to start.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Nevada Unified School District regular scheduled board meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you. So we're going to begin tonight with our announcements of reportable action in closed session, and so I'm going to turn it over to our Vice President, Trustee Butler.
Okay, the board did meet in closed session this evening on 4 items. The first item, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 48918, consider for expulsion student number 100006857. On Tuesday, March 15th, 2022, the Nevada Unified School District Board of Trustees met in closed session to review the administrative hearing panel's recommendation on expulsion of student number 100006857. Based on the review of the panel's recommendation, Trustee Millerick made the motion to expel. The student will be expelled to the Marin County Office of Education's Marin Community School for the remainder of the semester, which is the 21-22 school year. The following Ed Code violations: 48915, B, 48900H, 48900K. Trustee Aguila seconded the motion. I will do a roll call vote with the board. Trustee Aguila?
Aye.
Trustee Millerick?
Aye.
Trustee Jacobson?
Aye.
Trustee Gasson?
Aye.
Trustee Butler is aye, and Trustee Nell? President
Aye.
Nell? And Trustee Mack is absent this evening. The second item the board discussed with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957.1, conference with legal counsel, settlement of pending litigation. A majority of the board in closed session on March 15th, 2022, voted to approve a settlement agreement with the parent of a statewide student identifier number 412-397-9640, who asserted special education claims against the district. The board approved reimbursement for the private placement and services of up to $30,000 in exchange for releases and waiver of claim against the district. Trustee Millerick made a motion to approve the settlement agreement stated above, and Trustee Aguila seconded the motion. It was a 5-0 with 1 abstention and 1 absent. The third item of business in closed session was, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session, public employees discipline dismissal release. That was information only. The final item with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators Barbara Varankovich, Interim Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Employees Organization, Nevada Federation of Teachers, otherwise known as NFT. We gave direction. And that concludes the announcements.
All right, thank you. So moving on to item 7 of tonight's agenda, we have approval of the agenda. So I will look to the board to see if I can have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda. And I have a first from Trustee Millerick, a second from Trustee Aguila. All those in favor of tonight's agenda? 6-4, 1 absent, and 1 advisory from our student trustee. Thank you very much. We next move on to public comment on our consent agenda. There are no comments on our consent agenda, so I will move to item number 9, which is approval of tonight's consent agenda. Do trustees have any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda tonight, or can I have a motion to approve it?
make a motion.
Thank you, Trustee Aguila. So if there aren't any more questions or comments, I need a second, and we will approve. Trustee Jacobson will second. And all those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda, I have 6-4, 1 advisory, and 1 absent. And again, thanks very much. So we can now move on to item number 10, which are announcements from the board superintendent and our student board member. So take it away.
So we had our sophomore speech finalist, and they did a wonderful job. We had it at the Center of the Arts building, and it was really good. Like, each speech was amazing, and we love we love using that Center of the Arts building. It's pretty cool in there. We had an International Women's Day Assembly, which was very empowering. 400 students attended, female, self-identified, non-binary, and trans. Great participation and engagement from the crowd, breeze clips. Picks were very well-rounded and certain. There were a lot of topics being discussed, and it was very in-depth. We were thankful to have this opportunity to address such powerful issues on International Women's Day. Pi Day was a huge success, thanks to Mr. Blair and the math students and the math department. We took a drone shot on the football field with the shape of pi. It was very fun. There was a lot of pie everywhere, too. CAS testing is today and tomorrow for juniors. We moved the students to one section of the school to keep the testing area contained and quiet. It's working very well so far. MSA Young's Frankenstein was so good. It ran 2 weekends in the Center of the Arts building, and it was filled for every show. And then MSA Dance Student Choreography Showcase is this weekend, and we're excited to have them perform at the Center of the Arts as well. And then next week is our March Madness Spirit Week, and the Spirit Weeks have been chosen by the student body through a Google form. And then on the 25th is an indoor rally, MSA Words and Images at 5 p.m. that day as well. And then our Hornet Bowl is at 7 p.m. that day as well, which will be juniors versus seniors flag football. And then the dance will be the day after. So, yeah, we just started ticket sales as well. So.
All right, well, that's great. Thank you for updating us. Appreciate it. Trustee Miller, do you have any?
I have no comments this evening.
Okay, Trustee Aguila.
Yes, no, just wanted to say I attended the Golden Bell meeting, and we're working hard on that. It's going to be excellent. And there's a surprise, like I've said before, but I can't say. Anyway, and then I just wanted to say congratulations to Modeling the Way. Yeah, I wasn't able to attend, but it's always, I speak for myself, but always to have this going and seeing how our staff and teachers and everybody's just doing a great way to role model. So congratulations to all those who work hard.
I attended a reading event at Olive and got to read to a kindergarten class. It was very fun. I attended the Efficiency and Effectiveness Committee meeting. There's some changes happening there, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. I joined the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee group. They have oversight over the bond monies. We looked at the audit that just took place, and I think next board meeting they'll be presenting some information to us, which will be nice. I also had the pleasure of going to the sophomore speech. It was amazing. The students are so energized and exciting to watch, and it was a really fun event.
Trustee Guess.
So as Julie did, or Trustee Jacobson did as well, I was at Olive to do the Read Across America. It was one of the best times I had. I read to a 4th, 5th grade class that had Harry Potter books out, which was perfect because I wore my Harry Potter time changer necklace. And then I got to go to a special day class that was for littler kids. And when I walked in, somebody grabbed me by hand, showed me around the cool new classroom, and it was very sweet and very fun. Just made my day. I also participated attended the North Marin Council PTA and JLAC meetings, which are always very helpful and informative. And then last week, even though it was sort of a parent thing, we got a chance to do music concerts at both Sinaloa and San Marin High School, which is fabulous to see parents and the kids together again. So that was a lot of fun. And then Modeling the Way on Friday. I love that I get to go to those now. That's been a lot of fun. And this week, actually tomorrow, I saw you were also doing the CSBA Legislative Week. So we'll be meeting with, I always get his name, Levine and McGuire. Tomorrow we have appointments to speak with him. There's also, you mentioned before, there's Neurodiversity Week is next week, and some of our sites are going to be participating in different activities to create awareness. And there's actually some really great resources available at neurodiversityweek.com. They have different brochures and information and resources for families that have kids with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, Tourette's, and other things as well. Also, the showing of the R-Word movie, or the screening. It's a free virtual event. There's some information I wasn't able to actually get an easy link to distribute, but that's been sent out in social media. It's through Dedication to Special Education in conjunction with Marin County Office of Education. So it's the screening of the R-Word movie, and then the Q&A discussion afterwards, which will be with Sam Drazen, who is part of Changing Perspectives. And that is on Thursday, March 24th at 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Via Zoom.
All right, thank you. Trustee Butler.
Yes, I attended a North Marin Council PTA meeting as well. That's made up of all of our PTA presidents in the district. I was able to go to Young Frankenstein as well, which was amazing and so good. Looking forward to San Marin's, which will be coming up here in the spring, I'm assuming. What were they doing? Guys and Dolls. Okay, so I will make sure I get to that too. Efficiency and Effectiveness Committee, which is a county-wide committee made up of superintendents and board members across the county. I attended that, and JLAC, which is the Joint Legislative Advisory Committee, where we hear, and that's made up of superintendents and trustees across the county. And typically we get an update of the bills that are being put out there and potentially getting an idea of where they stand that our assembly members and senators have introduced from across California. Some have legs and some don't. We'll see what happens. And we're, as trustees, we want to push our Senator McGuire and Assemblymember Levine to the ones that we want them to support. So that's kind of what we kind of have to do right now. I was able to get out to Nevada High and see a little bit of a baseball, a little bit of lacrosse that was happening out there, and then Modeling the Way as well.
Okay, I just will report out that I too attended the JLAC committee, and as Trustee Butler stated, we reviewed about 23 pages worth of pending legislation, and after the CSBA does its thing, and some of these things are they don't get out of committee, we'll have a lot more to report, I think, in early April as to what we should be focusing on. So that's it for me. Superintendent.
The Blue Ribbon Committee is in process. We have 41 participants so far. So we need more, and we need students. So we want people to apply. You just received from Ellen an invitation to attend March 25th at Olive 315 ribbon cutting. If you haven't seen the building, those of you that we all read last week, I'm telling you, it's spectacular. Tour of Novato School Fuel is on April 23rd, 11 to 2 at the Mocha lawn area in the front. We'll set up on Friday, and it will be on Saturday. They're going to be doing as people that are participating in the tour are traveling around. There will be some locations for visual and performing arts too. So they're coordinating those right now. April 27th, 3:30 to 4:30 at Novato High PAC is a community event, and for any staff that would want to come to, it's Anthony Muhammad coming to talk about the equity audits, and he will have completed his audits with each of the schools by then, and so you'll hear an overview, so everyone's invited. And open houses are starting, so our first one is up at San Jose on 3/24, and then they all fall. And so some of them are a ton on the same night, which is going to be kind of tough, but anyway, that's it.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody, for updating us on the latest news and events. Okay, so we come to the best part of the meeting, in my opinion. I hope the rest of you agree. This is when we do presentations from our sites here at the Nevada Unified School District. And tonight, we have principal/administrator of the Hill Education Center, one of our finest administrators, and again, favorite administrator, in my personal opinions. I'm so happy to have you here tonight, Kessa. So please step forward and tell us what you got.
Good evening, everybody. Is it this one or this one? This one right here.
Yeah, that one.
Hi. So thank you so much for having us today. I've brought some exciting people. I have two teachers. One is our CTE culinary teacher. I'm going to have her introduce herself. Our other is a Marin Oaks teacher. And then we have a community partner from YLI who's going to talk a little bit about what they're doing. And then we have 4 students that are going to just tell us their name and their grade. So do you want to start with her?
Hi, everybody. My name is Maria Navarro. I'm here with YLI, and I help coordinate the Student Advocacy Council there. And these 2 students participate in it. They were able to, gather students to interview for this very amazing video that you'll be watching. And they went through a process of thinking about the questions and what questions are more important for you all to see to make this video possible. And yeah, with all their efforts, you'll be able to see how great it turned out.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Lindsay, and I'm a junior.
I'm Rodrigo, and I'm a senior.
Hi, I'm Kelly Geiser. I'm the culinary arts teacher at Marin Oaks, and I brought a couple amazing students with me tonight. Oh yes, thank you. We made after school today, all of us and a few other students, a curry lentil soup. It's vegan with all organic vegetables. And we have a chocolate bark with a matcha green mint white chocolate on top, and a hibiscus tea sweetened. I know you guys like sugar. And yeah, so it's up for grabs throughout or after, and thank you.
Hi there, I'm Miguel Gonzalez. I'm a junior, and I'm in culinary class, and I'm in the art program as well.
Hey, I'm Adrian, and I'm a junior.
Hi, I'm Mia, and I'm a junior.
Hi, I'm Maria Bartholomew. I'm the art teacher at Marin Oaks, and there's a little clip in this video you're going to watch about the mural design that my students are doing. They each got a door on campus to design for our school, and it's really just to connect them with public art and enhance the community at Marin Oaks. So I know we love seeing what they're doing there, and pretty much all of these students here are participating in it. So, yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and press play and let you watch that video.
Hello, everyone. We're the Student Advocacy Council at Marin Oaks. Collectively, we put together a multitude of testimonies from students participating in one or more enrichment programs at our campus.
I feel other schools should implement this program because it's an experience you probably won't get anywhere else, working with teachers, learning ways to cook, and building teamwork skills.
I'm just gonna share what we cooked yesterday. Yeah. So we talked about it on Wednesday. We went through our cookbooks.
I joined Mindful Meditation Club because it showed me new breathing techniques and ways to help me center myself and be able to have healthy outlets of relieving stress.
I'm Krista Peach. I'm the College and Career Center Specialist as well as the coordinator for the Bridges program.
Sean Doherty, I'm a senior.
and I'm taking this course so I can grow my mind and get better and hopefully go into the world of business myself.
What I'm trying to get out of college is like a knowledge of business and entrepreneurship.
I am so grateful and glad I get to work with these kids and help them get ready and prepared for joining college or the next pathway that they do, because it gives them a chance to build their confidence and go through all the steps that need to be taken to get there, which can be really difficult and stressful. So I feel very fortunate that I get a chance to make a difference for these kids.
My name's Jeremy. I chose to join this club because like it's just a good outlet for me to be able to have a studio set up at school. Like I feel like a lot of people don't really get the opportunity. So, you know, we real blessed to have this here. It's like not a lot of kids. I mean, I got my own setup like at home, like a little setup, but it's like not a lot of kids get this opportunity where they got a free studio at school, you know, and then they got people helping them learn how to get better at their craft.
I chose to take part in this program just because music's been something that's been a part of my life. Like it's always been a part of my life.
SAC is it's a group of students interested in changing a policy on campus, and I joined because I think it's important to have a program that like this on campus because we're able to discuss the policies on campus and the policies that are in place right now, and it helps with our voice and our opinion and concerns.
A few activities I participated in the men's club was I think it was the Day of the Dead for women's domestic abuse. We just colored in like skulls, like candy skulls. We watched a video on just domestic abuse and a woman who went through domestic abuse and how she thought it was all normal, but it really wasn't.
The most important thing I learned in men's club is that like men go through all the same things that women go through. Like men get sexually abused, men get verbally abused and physically abused just like women do. And it's like one of the most important things I learned about that is like people got to be more open to hearing about that stuff because men aren't able to talk about it.
So some other topics people have been talking about are homelessness. People have done things on women's rights in general, equal pay. People have been doing things on climate change, on health insurance, just a lot of really prominent things that people are going through in America right now, especially since COVID. Like health insurance is becoming a really big issue due to everything that was happening in COVID and not having enough money. And so just the topics that people are doing are definitely really affecting Novato too.
That meets and we talk about what we can give and like do for our community. So we're trying to work on raising money to, I don't know, do like community projects. And at the end of the year, there's a big project where we go and help build an orphanage in Mexico. So that's something we're trying to raise money for and work towards.
My favorite thing about participating in the club would be the sense of community that is formed throughout just the year. And the constant goal that we're trying to work towards, whether it be giving food, helping with wildfires, but just that constant kind of small group, that teamwork that we're always building towards.
Like people got to be more open to hearing about that stuff.
Any questions or?
Well, I don't know. Let's check in. You guys, Trustee Gasson.
I loved it, hearing about the different programs. And one of the things that I saw, it was on next to a person's name, and I couldn't see it because of the computer, but it mentioned Friday Night Live. Is that? What is that?
You want to?
So we do have YLI does several different kinds of programs, and we have FNL, which is Friday Night Live, and then SACs, which is the Student Advocacy Council. Do you want to hear about what we're doing this year, or?
I didn't know what the reference was to. Like, is it?
Yeah, it's funny because I've gotten this question a lot this specific week. That's just the name of it, but every year there's a different focus. But this year we'll be doing like a silkscreen printing project where each student, as you saw, picked a different topic, a different issue that they're very much passionate about. And as a form of activism, they're going to be showing these art pieces. No, they're actually going to be giving them to a local business. They have to find an org that resides with whatever project topic that they'll be doing. Every year it kind of varies. So it's a program where I'm basically like responsible for supporting students to create a project that will either impact the school or the community as a whole. So it very much varies every year.
Thank you.
Trustee Jacobs.
Thank you so much. That was so great, you guys. I have had the pleasure of enjoying your food on many occasions, and it's always fantastic. And I feel like if every student at the high school level got to participate in the types of things that you guys do, our world would be a better place. So I'm so glad that you guys get to do these things and that you're kind of blossoming into part of our community in this way. So thank you.
Great. Trustee Aguila.
Just wanted to say thank you for wearing so many hats, and one of them is overseeing these programs, and they're wonderful. And we didn't have any of these I don't remember any of these when I was going to Novato High. So congratulations.
Okay, anything else? No comment? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Kessa, for being here tonight, and I want to thank your students for being here as well. Appreciate the time that you're giving us this evening. It's nice to hear from you, and as well as your staff. So,
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, absolutely.
I just want to say one of the things that's so great, I think, about our community at Hill is that the students' voices really matter. So a lot of these programs are birthed out of what they find interesting, right? So the music studio was created because we had a student who really enjoyed music and working, and so that's where then it was like, okay, let me get a grant, and then we were able to have the studio, or cooking and really having the love of culinary and learning how to cook. And so I think it's so valuable that our students use their voice, and then we're able to actually hear them. So thank you so much, and don't forget to get some food.
Yeah, we will, and I just want to acknowledge Kessa, because you hear that the kids are coming up with ideas, and they are, and she is the impetus to make it happen. And so it doesn't happen just overnight. She works really hard to find the support people, to find the grants, to find whatever it is that she thinks the kids need. And I visit there a lot because it's just so fun to go, and I get to eat. And we had really great food, and they're doing recipes that you'll want to do at home, which is great. And then for the doors, I really want you guys to get over there, and you need to see the music studio also. But when I first went to the art class, and I go to that one every single time, right? I'm there every time. I saw the kids doing the plans just on a piece of paper, and to see what's happened from that is amazing. And you will be so excited to see all of their work. I'm so proud of all of you, and the staff is amazing, and they do great things there. So we all need to go. Maria, I'm sorry.
I have a question. I know, like, all the students that attend physically and in person get to participate in these programs, but you also have students that don't come here. They're not here physically, right? Do you?
Not for Roanoke, but for Novo, it's almost all students are remote, and so those students have the ability to either come in if they wanted to do the art project. And we have 2 students in the culinary class that are from Nova. They come in person, and then we also have an online art program with a different partnership.
And so when, like, for example, when they're online, how do they get to participate? As far as did they just present their project to you via iPad, or how does that?
It's a completely different program, Maria. This is Roanoke's, and then Nova.
Yeah, so I thought that some of the Nova students were able to participate in these programs.
They are able to participate. We have 2 Nova students who participate in the culinary, but they come in person. They're not doing it via Zoom.
That was my question. Like, how can they do that if they're doing?
When we were all remote, we were able. Our teacher at the time, Mr. Mattern, was fabulous and really just figured out a way to just kind of transition into online learning. And what he did was he would cook at his house and then Zoom in. All the kids would Zoom, and he would pick up all of the different foods for each of the kids, and then they would pick up their package. And then cook alongside with them. So hopefully we never have to do that again. But but that's how remote works.
Yeah, I get it now. Thank you.
Sure. Trustee Millerick.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys. This is great. So, there's a program out at the Indian Valley campus they got a farm with organic grown produce that's freshly grown, because there's the dirt right there. It's easy. Do you participate with that program at all? Have you got any relationship with that? Can we help?
Our Bridges program has a great partnership with both campuses, but not so much with the garden there. We have our own garden at Hill.
So why go there? That's great.
Yeah,
I like that model. That's good. That's great. I'm coming over for some.
Yes, please enjoy the food.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
If I can say something too, you all are invited to come to the school. Sorry.
So everyone can hear that's watching through the internet.
All of you are invited to come. We cook every Thursday after school from about 1:40 to 3:30. So 2 to 3, anytime in there. We're busy. You can watch us work. Or Friday around 9:30, we kind of prep everything and get it all going and hot, and then we serve around 10:30. So, and we're usually out of food by 11. So it's a short window, but please come. It's delicious. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much. Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming, you guys. Appreciate it. Okay, so we will go ahead and continue on with our meeting. Our next agenda item is 12, and that's non-agenda public comment. This is the time in the meeting where the public has an opportunity to address the board on items that are not on tonight's agenda. And because they're not on our agenda, the board won't be able to comment back, but we will receive anything in writing that you have for us, and we'll certainly take note of what you have to say. So there's a 3-minute limit as well for everyone who speaks, and our first speaker is ready to go, Jeannie Para.
That's a hard act to follow.
It is a hard act, I agree, yes it is.
And there's food, so, okay. NUSD Board Policy, Volunteer Assistance. Prior to working as a volunteer in the district, the volunteer shall provide the district with proof of COVID vaccination and boosters as required by California Department of Public Health and/or Marin County Department of Public Health. Notice, it states required. I discovered that CDPH and our county health department has never required this. In the county's 32-point plan, it states this: any substitutes, contractors, visitors, or volunteers working directly with students should be boosted if eligible. I contacted Dr. Lisa Santora to verify and clarify. Her response was, volunteers should be vaccinated, boosted up to date. It is not a public health order. Why is NUSD continuing this requirement under the false notion that our health department requires it? I have been in contact with Leslie Benjamin for over 1 month regarding this issue. I did not receive an adequate answer to my question. I was told the district is currently reevaluating the volunteer requirements and will be providing an update to the community soon. It appears parents were misled to believe this was a county requirement. In the same vein, San Marin parents and students were notified in January that students had to be fully vaccinated to attend the senior prom due to the guidelines set by the City of San Francisco and the prom venue. On March 2nd, I called the venue to verify the requirements. They sent me their guidelines for February 16th and their update for March 1st. Both of these documents included the option for guest students to provide proof of a negative COVID test instead of vaccination. Myself and a San Marin parent contacted the principal to ask why parents weren't notified of the testing option. In his response on March 4th, he stated the following: we as a school site cannot overrule the city or venue policies. Note, February 16th venue policy included the testing option. On March 8th, the families were notified of the change. Why weren't families notified in a timely manner? Why is it that myself and other community members have to become the watchdogs to these so-called requirements that have caused much stress and division in our community and within the families? Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we have one more speaker, and that is Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I'm having trouble reading your last name. I think it's
Pickerel.
Pickerel. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity to speak. Good evening, dignified board. In the light of the rollback of all the mandates, including San Francisco in schools, and it seems to be, as well as the masks, a really good time to talk about protecting our kids going forward. So in the name of protecting kids in learning environments, we've imposed a lot of really tight behavioral demands upon our kids, and much of this has robbed them of what would have been their normal lives. And so I just feel like it's a good time now to affirm that and to say, as a board, as Nevada School District, that you're going to protect those fundamental rights and privacies that these kids have going forward. So I want to name a few of those fundamental rights. Kids and parents have been deprived of their lives and freedoms, and protecting kids means protecting their sovereignty and promoting good judgment, not just ordering them because they said so. Kids with parental guidance have a fundamental right to life and to choose what they put on or in their bodies. They have a right to be free from discrimination or being encouraged to discriminate between each other. They have a right to privacy, especially about medical matters. They have a right to be told the truth. Now, this is a big deal. When they're asked to make sacrifices and they've been misled about the origins of the requirements, that creates a disconnect in our trust relationship, both parental and on the school level. So what I'm asking this board to do is to consider drawing up and voting on a resolution that will protect the parents and kids' rights to choose going forward, to choose both vaccination or masking. And whatever the state might do, that the board can have a resolution that says, well, we're doing this. Now, this has been done already in over 150 school districts in the state. They have made resolutions saying that even if the state says it's mandated, we are affirming that no, we are not going to do it in this school district. We're going to protect the rights and the lives of our kids. My heart breaks for all of the memories and milestones that have been missed by these kids in these last 2 years. I just don't want to see that to continue. I want us to correct course and do the right thing by them and give them the best possible learning environment and young lives that they can have. So thank you.
All right, and thank you both for your comments this evening. We're going to move on to item 13, which is discussion action. And our first item A is approval of the 2021-2022 second interim budget report, and our Chief Financial Officer, Lois Standing, will present. Take it away.
Ellen. It's not, oh, the mouse, never mind. I was trying to use the pad, not the mouse. Screen?
No, the little guy at the bottom. Sorry, friend. This little guy.
Okay, and I just use the arrows. Okay, got it. All right, hello. It's March already, hard to believe. All right, I like to start out with an introduction, a little bit, just an easy introduction of why we do a second interim. It's a really good time of year. We're more than halfway through. We get to have a pretty good look at what our budgets are going to look like for the rest of the year. There still could be surprises, but we clean up lots of things because we know, we have a feeling for how things are moving along. And we also have the governor's proposed budget, which came out in January, and that helps guide our creation of the multi-year projection. And did she come? Where is she? Oh, I was hoping Nancy Walker was coming. I wanted to. Oh, okay. Before I really start, I just want to thank her for all of her hard work in getting this done. It is definitely a team effort to bring this report together, and she works very hard to make the numbers work in the background. So I just want to give her thanks for helping out with this. Okay, And the second interim is also a time, it gives us a pretty good starting point for starting to think about budget development. Once this meeting is over, you've approved this, Nancy and I will be sitting down and making our plan of attack for budget development and getting it out to departments and sites and really getting a head start to give you a nice solid budget come June. And besides that, this is required by AB 1200. That's always part of it. Okay, some of the significant adjustments since first interim. It's a pretty big number, but there's an explanation for it. Unrestricted supplies and services increased by $1.9 million. A bulk of that is because we did some moving around of things that we've started to work with Ed Services and figure out our supplemental funding. And supplemental funding is a pot of money we get every single year. We need to use it to help our unduplicated students, and we want to have a good, solid plan that will continue year after year and ensure that we spend the money in a good way. So we're reevaluating, making some changes, but what we've also done is we want to make sure as much of it gets spent this year as possible, so we have moved some of the expenditures from COVID funding to supplemental. The laws changed this year, and any carryover from supplemental, which used to be able to fall to the bottom line and just be used to support the district, can no longer be used that way. They need to be used for the supplemental purpose. So if we continue to have carryover in supplemental, we are going to build up a giant reserve of supplemental funds and be in a position where we just will be overwhelmed with trying to spend that money. So we really want to get a good plan in place to make sure we're supporting those students. And another big part of this increase is some of the newer budgets and things that we've set up now that we know what we're doing for the year. We've added budget for various things. So there's more detail in the forms, and if you have any questions at all, we can go over that. Local revenue increased by $741,000. That is mostly grants and donations that come in, and we don't budget for that until they happen. And then the big one is our multi-year projection was greatly improved from first interim based on the board action to reduce budget for next year. Any questions on any of that? Okay. I don't know if you can see that, and you have it in your presentation. So I'm hoping this is big enough to see. So this is where we'll spend the most time. And we'll start with Lcff Sources as we go across the years. So we show $73 million this year in Lcff, and that drops to $72 million next year. And we made an assumption, although the governor has proposed a possible spreading of a cushion for the ADA cliff to take an average of the past 3 years. Because that's not definite, we did not use that assumption in this multi-year projection. We used a more conservative assumption, which is the one we've been talking to you all about, that we go back to what it was. We have to use the lower of next year or this year, and it's low. So this is showing a cliff, but it's offset by the large COLA that you've heard about for next year, the 5.33, which there is some rumor that may even end up higher, but this is based on the 5.33. And then the following year out, it goes up again, which would be based on a combination of, they're still planning for a decline in enrollment, but also an increase in COLA, so that's the offset of that. So then we go down to the salaries line, and you can see between 21 and 22, it goes from 77 million down to 75 million. So that is the result of the budget cuts that you approved, as well as it's offset by some positions that we have added for next year. But that's the main influence there. And of course, it's offset by step and column. That's built into that, because that always happens. And let's see what else is useful. When we go out to, I know what's important, I'm sorry, back up to all other revenues, third year out, parcel tax is missing. So I think what I want to do is take you down to the net increase, decrease in fund balance. As you notice, the first 2 years are both positive. When we brought first interim, that middle year, the second year was negative 4 million. So it's much improved. That's a combination of the budget reductions plus cleaning up the budget, making it tighter. So that is looking very good. And then we go out to the third year, which at first interim was a negative 8 million, and now it's a negative 2 million. So we still have some work to do. Possibly the parcel tax will solve that, possibly other things, depending on how we move forward. But if you could go back and compare this to your first interim multi-year, you'll see that it's quite different. And it's encouraging. I think we're on the right path to balancing things. Okay, any questions on this form?
We do. Trustee Gaston and then Trustee Milrick.
So one element that I'm noticing has dropped quite a lot is all other expenditures that went from 24,000 down to 15,000, almost 16,000.
Where are you looking?
The all other expenditures under total expenditures, and for the 2022-23.
Oh, okay, so that, and Nancy, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it is because this year we're still including all of the extra funding, COVID, those types of things, carryovers, and those are not assumed to follow in future years.
Okay. It just was a huge percentage.
Yes.
Donations, grants, and the related expenses.
Okay. That's fine. It just was.
Yes.
Quite
That just shows how much one-time money we have.
Difference. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Milrick.
So I think it's the same question in a different light. I'm looking at the blue column, and I'm looking at the second number down, and I'm going to turn my back on you. So it went from 30 million to 21 million?
Yes, that is the same question, just on the revenue side.
Yeah, okay, so that $10 million is one-time money that's flowed into the district because of COVID or other special circumstances?
That would also include, we have quite a bit of money, one-time state, federal dollars. When we prepared the multi-year projection, there's an additional, the stimulus spreadsheet that you included in there. We only counted for the dollars that have a related expense. So some of them that require a plan, like the A through G, and there'll be some of the ESSER money left over, and the para-educator money and things like that. But until there's a definitive plan, this is the revenue and the related expenses that we know of today.
So basically, since this is the current year, you have real expenses that tie to real grant-sorted revenue, and so you can include them both. Right. For the stuff that may impact us next year, which isn't here yet, you're still building the plan. When you have the plan, those numbers are going to, both the revenue and the expense will go up together.
Absolutely.
Do I get the model?
That is correct. And most of the dollars are subject to the rules around deferred revenues. So I couldn't have it fall into our fund balance and then budget everything in the out years without getting a technical error from our software. So that's how we demonstrated it and included that secondary spreadsheet to show here's what's remaining in the timelines to spend it. And once we develop plans.
So we're tracking it, just not on this particular form.
Correct.
And
because there needs to be some plans and discussion.
And in the past, I have shown you a multi-year with just unrestricted dollars. And if we were looking at that, you wouldn't see that kind of drop-off. This is just because this is including restricted dollars.
Both restricted and unrestricted together on this
Exactly.
form. Okay, thank you very much for the clarification.
Trustee Butler.
I think you just answered my question, because I'm wondering what our past practice was. You're telling me that we're not including the one time anymore. We've taken that out for future years. Are you saying in the past we used to leave that in?
I don't know.
I want to make sure that.
If, for instance, we had federal dollars and we knew we were going to spend it over 2 years and had a complete plan, we would record the portion that we're going to spend this year as well as next year in the multi-year projection. But right now, it would be too confusing, in my opinion, to keep it in there absent a plan. You would see it in the 4,300 because that's where I block stuff until I know what we're gonna do with it.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense to me, okay.
Okay, so continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I wanted to go over a few of the things that are impacting how we got to where we are today, and we all talk about pensions. And this particular slide is a very high-level summary of a very detailed spreadsheet that you have in your packet towards the end. Have you all seen it? It has lots of red on it. And it's basically an accumulation of the added costs for STRS and PERS over the years since 13-14, when the first increases to STRS and PERS happened. So as you can see, the summary back in 13, STRS was at 8.25%. It had been at that for years. Going forward to 23-24, the second year of our multi-year projection, its certificated STRS is up to 19.10%. So that's over the time frame, 131% increase, which is huge. I mean, some people look at that and say, oh, that's an 11% increase. It's not. It's 131%. So that's huge. And then the cost to the district that's the accumulation of the extra cost every single year. So it says in the first year there was this added cost, in the second year there was that same added cost plus a new added cost for that increase, and so on and so forth. And this is just based on salaries. It's not including any STRS paid on hourly rates or subs or any of the extra pay. This is just an illustration of what just the basic cost of STRS and PERS for a district adds. So overall, over, what is that, 10 years, 11 years, it's an extra almost 39 million out of our budget, which if we had that back, it would all be very different. So I think that looking at it like this is a great illustration of how the impact that it is to the district. Diane?
So I know this isn't presented up there, but and thank you, I went through the whole package, and then today I went through the presentation, which is why I sent you the question, but I still do have one related to this, and it's not up here, but the spreadsheet that you're referring to, there's some negative or amounts in quotes. Is that the reduction from, it's 462,000. I guess in general, I was looking for when we get the, when the governor gives
the ones
us,
that are negative, that's because that's the state gave us support those years. The rate actually went down.
okay, that's what I was now. So those times when we were supposed to, and we've done really well, and he's like, okay, we're gonna not, so that's where that would be accounted for. Okay, that was what I wanted to know. How much did that end up, I mean, I hate to say save us, but how much was that?
Kept us from losing?
Yeah, correct, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions on that? Pension STRS and PERS could be a whole meeting. We could have a whole meeting on that.
Yes. Oh, now I got it funny. I'm sorry, Ellen. I know I'm looking.
An old-fashioned screen, this guy.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. And now this is another little more local factor. This is enrollment. And it is, I'm sorry I didn't get it back to 13-14. The data I had was 15-16. And it shows how some of our schools are going down, while some have actually gone up. The percentages on the side show either the increase or decrease over the timeline of enrollment for each one of our schools. Nova is a bit artificial because of last year in COVID, and we had this strange, huge increase because of bringing other districts into our program. But most of them are negative. Novato High is a positive 12%, and San Marin High is a positive 5%. All other schools are negative. Oh, I'm sorry. Loma Verde up 1%. So I think they had it's been pretty, been back and forth, but since 15, 16, it's up 4 students from 15, 16, it would increase in the middle and then went back down. So the general pattern is elementary schools are shrinking, the middle schools also, but the high schools seem to be holding and even increasing. Questions, comments?
Trustee Mulrick?
So I'm looking at the middle schools, I understand that elementary schools from the year you've measured in 2015, is that a 15?
Yes.
That's a
15, 16.
Are declining, which since kindergartners grow up to be high school seniors, this makes me nervous because all those cohorts with a larger population will be leaving, heading off to UCLA and Berkeley to go to school. So that's a problem, and I'm trying to figure out, have you done a trend analysis for this? This is the data, but are you raising a red flag? And the other one is that's not shown on here, and I think this doesn't go back far enough, is we had a charter school, a Nevada charter school, which was, I think, about 2000. Is that when it was formed? Yeah. 20.
I've been here 10. It was long before my time. We did our 20-year anniversary.
Yeah, so 2000. So it's nowhere on this data. It's 10 years to the left on this chart, or that way, right? Yeah. Yeah, so before 2000. So this is 2015. This is 2015. Yeah, okay. And that charter school population, I think, has been constant. It's about 300, 350. Is that about right? Yeah.
Trustee Miller, is there a question?
Well, I'm trying to make sure that what we're looking at is data that's not impacted by two things. One is the charter school, and we just resolved it's not. And the second is we used to allow inter-school to school transition, and so the bouncing around from one elementary school to another could as much be people choosing to do an intra-district transfer from, Rancho to PV or San Ramon to Loma Verde, making choices like that. So the number that seems important to me in the elementary is all of the elementaries added together, because those are the students who stayed within our system. And the two high schools, the same model. It's the two together, all of the students at age, grade 9 through 12, and all of the students K through 6. Because some of these numbers, as people's opinions about different campuses change, there's this moving around of students that doesn't change our revenue at all.
But if every elementary school is negative,
then it matters. Then it matters.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the only point I'm trying to make, is that the total elementary all taken together is the thing that makes me, and particularly grade level by grade level, which is data I'm sure you have available.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it would be curious to look at each site and start to question how many of those students.
But some of that's just community opinions that we can't control a lot.
No.
Should I move my kid from Lou Sutton to PV or not? It depends on the day, time of day.
But can
Okay, we're going to, Trustee Gasson.
I'm done.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, Trustee Gasson.
I was just going to say, I from personal experience, I would agree in concept, except for I think also it's the cohorts that come through. Like we had a year at PV where there was a huge amount of third grade kids. Mm-hmm. So it would, if you've got those pockets of really big school years of kids, or whatever, when they leave and go to middle school, you're going to see a jump up there, and you're going to see it's. So I think it is an interesting model to look at that, but I think also it will really depend on the size of that particular class for that year, because we ended up having to drop off a couple of lower grade levels teachers because there was just such a big group of kids in that one grade, and then nothing came after them. So.
Something happened in the middle of winter and everybody stayed home for a week and a half, and now you got a lot of kids.
All right,
Okay.
so historical enrollment next.
Let me make sure I get the right button. Okay, this is a short history of special education contributions, and there's some clarification to be made on this slide. The first one is the top number, the 8846, should be 8546. That was a typing error. And then I'm going to say that these dollars are what shows as the contribution to Resource 6500. So it's generally our special ed expenditures. What it does not include, and it should, is what we pay, what is called the excess cost that we pay to Marin County Office of Education, which is a balancing of what Compass is included in that, right? That offsets it. Because we have a MCOE program on our campus, that's a plus for us, but then we have many of our children at their programs, that's a negative. And it ranges the cost for that, which is would be added to special ed costs. We just haven't coded it to 6,500 for these last 5 years. Ranges anywhere from 1.4 million to what's budgeted this year at 2.4 million. So that adds significant amount to these amounts. So, and the other thing it doesn't include, and I have not calculated that over the several years, is transportation, because as you know, our transportation is solely for our special education students, and it is not a cheap program. So that would be another number. I think special education finance just serves a presentation all by itself. And so I think that will be something, as we examine it more, that will come to you down the road.
Okay, do you have any question, Trustee Gasson, question about special ed?
Sorry, yes, and I think, so was some of that response in response to my question about it? Your comments that you just made about what
Yes.
this, okay, because as much as I tried to reconcile this, I wasn't.
No, you were right with the, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe I will just have a conversation with you later, just so
Okay.
I understand. Only just because I know this is a significant piece that's underfunded, and there's some legislative stuff coming through, and I know
Yes.
that the governor is offering some, so I'm just trying to get my head around how much, it's great if, I think I saw somewhere in here, was it $820 more per
ADA,
so that's
yes.
great. And then I just like to take information and be able to find it somewhere. So the numbers I had on your report on page 8 were adding up to a different amount.
If,
So now
right, if you look to what's in the narrative is the correct amount.
Okay, so then, okay, great. That
Okay.
helps a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and finally, where do we go from here? Well, we're certainly not done talking about budget. As you know, we're on the road to examining parcel tax. We'll be working on that. We will be starting budget development. You'll be hearing all about that. And then once the Blue Ribbon Committee is done, I am planning to meet with the Budget Advisory Committee at least once in May to revisit and start to look at long-term solutions. That was the preferred topic of that group, and I'd like to follow up with them and get some good ideas going and get some working groups going to investigate and figure out feasibility and be able to bring ideas to all of you to see where we want to go with that. And that the purpose of that is to continue to streamline operations here at the Nevada Unified School District. It's a never-ending process, I believe.
Yeah, appreciate the graphic. It seems like
Yes.
the older I get, the faster the future comes. So, all right. Any other Trustee Butler?
Just the reserve cap. Can you talk a little bit about
course.
that? That's in our future.
Yes. So several years ago, I don't even remember how it was born. I guess part of LCFF or came after that, is if certain conditions are met with the budget, districts are going to fall into a time when they are going to be limited to a 10% reserve. Those moons have come together in the sky, and this is the year that for the first time the 10% reserve is going to hit us. So there's a couple of different ways to deal with that. The most obvious, spend the money, but I don't think we want to do that. If you look, and I don't have the total number, but I believe it's around 15% right now, 15 or 16% reserve, not including Fund 17. Do I have that right, or is that including Fund 17? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it. It's not, and there's another 5 million in Fund 17. So there, we have large reserves. I think the answer that comes around a lot is the idea of committing funds, which I don't know if I think you've done it here before, and I think I've talked to you about it. That's an idea where you decide things that you know you need this money for, and you actually pass a resolution, and it shows up on the financial report as committed. Taking that a step further, what the county has done for this, and I was just discussing this with Kate Lane, and it's a fascinating idea. They passed a resolution to basically create a rainy day fund for the county. And I have a copy of that resolution, and I'm hoping to discuss that with you because it's a very simple way to do it. And it would go back to the idea of you asking, I believe it was a 17% reserve that you earlier, before I was here, chose to go for. We are there, and I think we could pass a resolution that would basically create this rainy day fund. Whenever there was an excess, it would be there, and that would earmark it and keep it out of hitting, being out of compliance with the 10% reserve rule. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I heard. A resolution and simply just designating it to something is all we need to do. It sounds like that's still the case.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that seems simple enough.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Trustee Gasson and then Trustee Milrick.
So thank you. That makes me feel a little bit better. And actually, as always, Trustee Butler and I were on this same. I have this page flagged because I had some stuff that I actually caught because I knew that we somehow, because I think a person came and spoke one night and said, well, I thought we can only have 10% reserve. How come you're holding to my, and I would have to disagree that it's not a large reserve that we have. I think it's to say that the 3%
it's a safe
is sufficient.
Reserve.
It's just, hopefully we never have to go into that. But I like the solution that you just presented. But what I wanted to make note of, it's in the thing from MCOE, it's on page 177, or page 8 of the Marin Common Message that is attached to this, that I caught and thought was interesting, and there is a reason I bring this up. So it says that the threshold for triggering the cap when the state reserve reaches 3% of the K-12 portion of Prop 98 in that same year. And then later it says basic aid districts and small school districts with fewer than 2,500 ADA are exempt from this requirement. So I found it completely irritating. So my question is, and I'm not sure, it sounds like the way you started, the history of this, or is this something that when we talk to like McGuire, why did this happen, or is there ways to appeal it, or do you disagree, President Hill? That I don't understand the reasons.
I think it came with the inception of local control funding formula, or a little after that. It was less than 10 years ago. And school services and other CSBA have been railing against it since it started. And there just has not been any action to get rid of it. And mainly because
we've never had
people said it would never happen.
Oh, and
here it is.
Okay. I just thought that was like, again, I'm doing this for a reason. It says basic aid districts and small school. I'm like, well, that kind of not that you'd break up a school district for that, but who has 2,500 or less kids. They're all independent school. I don't know. It just seemed like it was a very small segment that it's targeting, and I wasn't sure why that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, happy to agendize a conversation around the 10% reserve cap that was put into place by the CTA, which is the California Teachers Union, in an attempt to restrict local boards like ours from setting aside funds to do things like capital improvements, develop specialized programs, but to in fact have that money be up for negotiation in salaries as opposed to what we felt was a proper use of the funds. Our representatives, we were able to get them to vote no twice, but on the third round they capitulated and cited the exceptions. And then there's also the golden rule, which is the basic aid districts who have all the gold make the rules. So they exempted their large reserves as well. So unfortunately, one of the reasons they cited voting forward was that the moons would never align, it would never happen, but actuarial accounting proved that this day, in fact, would come. So now we find ourselves in a position where we're going to have to think seriously about our reserves, and we're going to have to designate them appropriately to make sure that these funds, any funds that we could use to compensate our employees would be used for that purpose. But if we have other needs that need to be capitalized over a long term, we would have to come up with a plan that would survive a challenge. So I hope we're prepared to do that with this rainy day fund resolution that you speak of, and I'm anxiously awaiting to see the MCOEs tested. Okay, Trustee Milrick.
So I want to second everything Trustee Nell just said. This was hotly debated by the legislature. The idea that money was collected from the taxpayers and it should therefore and sent to schools to educate children. Clearly, this money needed to immediately and directly go into serving the labor force in the schools, not into the PG&E bill, not into insurance bills, not into buying buses, not into fixing parking lots, not into all the other services that are part and parcel to a school district, and also not have the safety net. Our resolution, I believe, that we passed is 17%. I believe that's the number. Well, that's 2 months worth of operating costs. So if you take 100% a whole year, 1 month is 8 1/3. So 8 1/3 and 8 1/3 is about 17%, which is what our model was. And I don't know of any business going in that doesn't have enough reserves that if something goes completely south, they can survive through 2 payroll cycles, that's for us, 2 payroll cycles. So that I think our position is very conservative, which is why I supported it at the time. 10% is half that, more or less. And it puts us down to like a month. If something goes wrong, we got a month. And so I think we need to have a strategy to make sure that we're sound. Now, everybody compares us to the rest of Marin County and says, you should be more like the rest of Marin County. So I think in this case, I actually agree with them. So I would like to know if anybody here in the room knows what reserves TAM district has, or what reserves the San Rafael district has, or if you want to get really interesting, what reserves the Branson school has. If you want to or San Domenico school has. If you want to compare us to what we hold up as a sound business model, and it's good. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. We ought to be having, in my view, the 17% is the right answer between too much and too little. It's the Goldilocks model. So I'm really interested in us building a structure to take and move from the 10% rule up to the 17% rule that this board adopted. So whatever steps we need to do that, I would ask the superintendent to put a plan together so we can protect the successful operation of this district, to make sure we stay solvent in the face of uncertainty. And if anybody wonders what kind of uncertainty there is in the world, I will remind you that COVID just came and went, and we currently have a war in Eastern Europe that's come and hasn't left yet. There's plenty of uncertainty that we need to make sure that our students can get the education they need in the time they have when they're available. So I would ask the superintendent to bring a plan forward to protect the district's financial stability.
All right. Thank you, Trustee Miller. Any further comments on the reserve cap being triggered this year? Okay. We have a public comment on this agendized item. So, Mariah Fisher.
Good evening. I want to just comment on some of the things that I've been hearing during this presentation. I don't agree that you should find a workaround and move money to a rainy day fund because there's a cap on your reserve. The cap is there for a reason. And sitting here talking about how you can have a separate reserve in a separate category really doesn't sit well with me. The other part that I would like to hear you talking about when we're talking about what we need to protect, it's the classroom. And it's the education that children are receiving. You have a staff that just is processing 33 layoffs and 33 notices that were delivered last week. I know because I sat there in those meetings and had to watch and feel what those meetings were all about. And it's still really raw for me. And you need to figure out how to pay your staff better and pay them what they are worth. When we talk about what things are worth, they are worth a part of this conversation. Nobody has talked about how your teachers need a salary increase. It's been 2 years. It's time. And nobody has said anything about that. So they should be a part of the conversation, just like your reserves. Somebody should be saying the word certificated staff, classified staff, the staff that you are here governing should be a part of this conversation. And I haven't heard them brought up yet, so I thought I would mention that.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so just want to make sure we're on track with the presentation.
I'm done.
You're done. So then, do we have? We don't have any action.
Yes, you need to
have
approve.
action. We do. We have to accept this. Of course, we do. All right. So then, I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion and questions, and then if you're ready for a motion. So, Trustee Butler, you had your.
I don't have any. I'm ready to move on this.
So I have a motion, so I would look to garner a second, and then we don't have to vote right away if we don't want to, but I have a second from Trustee Gasson to accept tonight's second interim budget. Are there any more questions or comments? Okay, so I just have a brief comment. I think it's important that whenever you're talking about money, it's about priorities, and there's certainly one thing for sure that I know about this board, and that's that we care about our employees, and we want to see that they're compensated at the highest possible level. So there isn't any lack of planning or effort on the part of the board to find ways to succeed at this. I think that it's fair to be always thinking about how to improve the wages of our staff. So I know that to be the case. What happens, though, sometimes is I think if I fail to recognize, for instance, we looked at a 131% increase in their retirement funding. Now, most people would consider that a significant raise in income. So, on one hand, the state is funding us at a level to maintain these increased retirement premiums, but it's really not quite enough from an operating perspective to probably increase their wages to what they think is adequate. So we will continue to work with our employees on this particular issue, but I think it's fair to say that when you receive such a large amount of money that goes into your retirement account, you can't claim that to be anything else but an increase in income. That's just, quite frankly, my position on that issue. So thank you, Board. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of accepting tonight's interim report? 6 in favor and 1 absent. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move ahead. All right, next is, so we're still on item 13, discussion action, and the item B, which is approval of the Nevada Unified School District's initial proposal for negotiations with the California School Employee Association, known as CSEA, and Nancy New will present.
So I'm here tonight to bring our response. At last board meeting, CSEA provided their sunshine of what articles that they're looking to negotiate on during this year's negotiations. And this is the district response now. We would like approval from the board that to accept our suggestions of working on 2 articles, hours and overtime and absence from duty, in addition to, of course, what we will be negotiating that CSEA brings forward.
Okay, so you guys have any questions or comments about the proposal that we're bringing forward? Seeing none, can I have a motion to accept? I have a motion from Trustee Milrick and seconded from Trustee Aguila. And now that I have a question from Trustee Gasson? You're just, okay, so then all those in favor is 6 in the affirmative and 1 absent. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We will proceed on to item number 14, which is a staff report. And this report is going to be student assessment data. We're going to review the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, affectionately known as CAASPP, along with the Galileo Devereaux Student Strengths Assessment, the DESSA, and you got to hand it to public education and its acronyms. So,
you do love our acronyms.
Yeah.
Director Larson, take it away.
No, it's me.
It's going to be Jan, and I'm going to follow up with some of the DESSA.
Yeah, so we're going to talk to you tonight about the assessments that we have that are common throughout the district, which is great. CASP is one that started in 2015, and so that's why I have the data. Before that, there were several different iterations, and while I've been gone for 10 years and working in the other districts in the county in 15 schools, I was tracking the data. So I was tracking Novato, I was tracking San Rafael, Shoreline, and Sausalito, which were the districts where I was working. And COVID has had a real effect on the data. So it's not, I don't think it's as accurate as it's going to be in a year from now. I think we'll see some gains. But so the first data that you're going to look at right here is the cohort data, so that what we want to look at is how are our students doing over time. So you can see, if you look at the data, and it's by student groupings. So we have the first group is how overall all of our students doing. The second is our English learners. The third is our economically disadvantaged students, and then Latino students, and then our Caucasian students. So that is kind of the overall. So if we start at 2015 in 3rd grade, let's just look at the overall. You can see the English language arts, the kids that are meeting or exceeding standards are 46% in English language art, and math at 52%. Not bad. And then we get to 4th grade. This is the same students, or relatively the same students with movement in and out. You can see that English language arts increased a little bit, so that's a good thing. And then math started to drop a little bit. Not much, it's almost even. Then we get to 5th grade, and we see a drop in English language arts, and then a significant drop in math. And the math is an area that is something that we really do need to address. We get to 6th grade, we're dropping a little bit more and a little more balanced in with the math. At 7th grade, we've got a big gain, which is great. So 61% of our students are meeting or achieving in English language arts. So that's really great. And then 7th grade math looks pretty good. So we're thinking, oh, good. Then we don't have CASP. And then we don't have this in 2023, we'll have them as high school students. This year, our 11th graders were at 62% English language arts. So that tells me that we're maintaining in English language arts, which is, we're doing very well. But if we look at the math, it's disconcerting, right? Because we're decreasing. The student groupings are of great concern to me because we need to do a better job with doing tutorials or tutoring and that is tailored for the students. When I was working, I worked in San Rafael High School for 5 years, and we had something called a CASP program, and it was College Access and Student Success. We selected 200 students that we would invest in, and they came for direct tailored tutoring in English and math, and we had a huge percentage of kids getting accepted to four-year colleges. So what we're talking about is that we've got to restructure to provide more tailored support, particularly for our English learners and our economically disadvantaged kids. When you're economically disadvantaged, it does not mean that you can't achieve, but what we're seeing is scores that are not what I would like them to be. So that's the CASP. The reason CASP is important is because this is what we have for our state. When people are judging us, they're looking at these scores. When realtors are selling houses, they're not looking at our performance-based assessment. They're looking at our summative assessment, which happens to be CASP for the whole state. So that's kind of important. Okay, so let's go to this next one. What are you putting up there now?
The state.
The comparison of the state. Okay, well, so
NUSD.
that's fine. Okay, so I think it's important for us always to be higher than the state because of our population here, and in most cases we are. But you can see then it's really just in our overall and our Caucasian population. And so that worries me as well, is because in our other student groupings for English learners, economically disadvantaged, Latino, and SPED we're not. So we need to do more tailored work. And as Jen is working with LCAP and working with the teams, I really want us to stay focused on getting the services directly to the students that the money's coming to us for. So that's a real important thing. So we see we're over in third grade, and those are the two overall. In Caucasian, we're above the state. In fourth grade, above the state. In fifth grade, above the state. In those two areas, sixth grade, seventh grade, we're pretty good. And across the board, the exciting news in eighth grade, we're above the state in economically disadvantaged, so that's good, and 11th grade as well. But when we look at our math scores, they're significantly lower than they should be, and we really need to design some tailored work for our math, so that's a really important thing. Okay. This document is really the one that I like the best, and the reason I like it so much is because this is the breakdown of what CASP tests. So in English language arts, it's reading, writing, listening, and research. Our scores, the three scores that you see here are, the first score is students achieving above, students near passing, and then the last one is below. So what I did when I put these scores together, I highlighted the areas where we're below. So if you look at English language arts really across, we're actually doing fairly well, except for fourth grade reading and sixth grade reading and into 2019. And then those got improved. And then you look at 2021, and only sixth grade is an area of reading. Writing is an area I think we should be working on across the board. Writing. Really important. Listening, we're pretty great. And research, we're really good. So that we start seeing what are the patterns. And so if I were looking at this data, and I provided this data for each of the schools at the beginning of the year with this breakdown so they could see at their sites what they need to work on. And so that's a really important thing. But then when you look at math, I don't even need to go through the grades or through anything, because you can just see overall, this is serious. And we really need to do something about it. I will say that I was in a classroom at Lou Sutton the other day, and I was watching the teacher modeling for the kids and how the kids were modeling, and I saw exactly the strategies that the kids need to have on this test. She was doing it, and they were responding. So I think that's good. So I do believe that our teachers are doing a really good job with as much as they can for teaching exactly the skill set that are expected on the standards. So I want to honor them for that, but it's not translating to the summative assessment. And the good news is that what Jen and her team has selected in this time that I've been gone, we moved from a different assessment to this one, is Galileo is aligned with CASP. So if we see CASP has an area of concern or strength, then Galileo should have a similar comparison, and she'll go through that. So generally, math, we need to really work on. English language arts were better, with the exception of writing. I would like us to see a stronger writing program that is across the board. So I think also we need to acknowledge that COVID did a lot to destroy our learning and teaching, and the teachers are working very hard trying to do catch up, and they're doing double time is what I'm going to say. They're doing double time trying to capture what the kids lost and what they're supposed to be doing for the current grade. So I think in a year from now, we'll be looking at these. The tests that are going on, Danny described that the juniors are taking it right now, and I'm hoping to see a different outcome and some increases. So, and now Novato High's testing this week. San Maria's not testing till May, the window. So it'll be a different norming for each of the high schools. So we'll need to remember that when we talk about it. Okay.
We will.
Yeah.
So, just to speak to those areas, not only is switching to Galileo around the correlation between Galileo and our CASP outcomes, but also we looked at Galileo because the teachers can actually use that data to identify by standards, and the standards that are there are aligned to our proficiency scales and the standards that we've identified. So when we identified our essential standards, you may recall years ago, one of the criteria that the teachers used was high leverage, or those standards that we know are going to be most often represented on some of these higher stakes tests. So as our teachers start to implement our PBE and those proficiency scales, we should start to see more alignment. And some of this data has been really helpful as it's coming in. Granted, yes, COVID had a major effect on this. I will give you an example, and I may have used it before. We have a team, our data specialists, who look at this data all week, every week, in regards to their own students, their schools, and then as a whole. And part of that is, did we get it right with essential standards? Are we seeing correlation? And one area where we're reevaluating is second grade. We notice that there's less correlation in both ELA and math than we would see in the rest of the grade levels. So having the flexibility to have that data help us refine the process as we're putting it in place. So I agree that we hope to see some of these shift in a positive way over the next year or 2 years. And then in terms of what Lois, to connect us with our second interim, working closely with Lois, we have a very shared vision, I think, as a team to ensure that the dollars are spent directly on student services, and that the dollars that are spent on the students they're designed to be spent for. So a lot of the differences you're going to see in this year's LCAP is making sure that the services we see and what we fund through our LCFF supplemental money is very directly tied to these outcomes, one of which will be much smaller size for our EL classes and supports that are very specific to individualized instruction for our students. So some exciting things. So as we move forward on this, I'm going to be showing you the Galileo data. Obviously, we've only taken the first two, so we take beginning of year, middle of year. You're going to notice they are fairly tied to what we saw in that CASP data from last spring. If you remember, and you could go back and look at years data, we used MAP, Testament, and WEA for years before this. Winter is always a dip. So what happens between beginning of the year and mid-year in any assessment like this, any benchmark assessment, is the beginning of the year is assessing where the students are at the beginning. Are they ready for the grade level? Then they start adding all of this grade level's standards. And so in the process of learning those, and then by the end of the year, we should have a pretty close indication of where they should fall on their CAST test. So you're going to see that there's some drops, there's some increases, but they are very reflective of what we just saw. Very similar trends. ELA continues to gradually go up as the grade level goes up. We start at about 40% of our students being at or above, and then by 12th grade, they're at 63%. Conversely, math goes up until upper grades in elementary school, similar to what we see on CAS. Right around 5th grade, we start seeing some significant decline, and they steadily go down through high school. All of the places where you see TBA, that's because high schools are waiting. A certain percentage of students have to complete the assessment before we can have it normed. And so we'll be able to fill those in for you, and I can send those out in one of my board memos. Okay, so you can kind of see just the overall patterns. And then the next set is exactly the same organization as you saw with CAS, where we're comparing our student groups. So we have our overall, our our ELs, our socioeconomically disadvantaged Hispanic students, and our white students. As you can see, very similar percentages. There are some increases. They are certainly a little bit higher as you go up the grade levels, getting all the way up into the 70%, which would be amazing for us to see some 70% proficients and above come CASP. But again, there is significant discrepancies between our students who are experiencing different risks and challenges or just have different needs. And so we need to make sure we're individualizing our support and making sure that that support is very specific to the need that they have as it's related to this success rate. And then the last one is, okay, high school. This is just continuing on. So this is the same groups, but we're moving on through 12th grade. You will notice what we don't get with CASP is what happens between 8th and 11th grade. Galileo is really helpful for us to have some kind of marker. We have been using, for math in high school, we've been using a separate assessment, and part of the reason for that is because of its direct alignment to the standards. A big part of that, however, is Galileo's high school math assignments are by grade level, not by course. And because we're a district who did not choose an integrated math pathway, it's very hard. They're not going to relate to what the end goal is. So 9th grade standards or the 9th grade assessment in Galileo covers Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 skills because they're taught cyclically through all of those years in an integrated design. Our math classes aren't designed for that, and so the assessment that they do is aligned with that, and we can add those into a separate spreadsheet as well as soon as we have those. All right, any questions on Galileo?
Yes, we do.
Great. Okay.
Your question was on CAS. Do you have, Maria, go ahead. You go.
Yeah. My question's on both. So I just want to make sure I get this straight. I appreciate the efforts of the teachers that have always been working on the students and doing the best that they can, especially during the COVID and all that. And I also appreciate some of the good scores that we see. I am, however, concerned. I know that COVID happened, but I'm wondering about, remind me again how long we've had Galileo?
This is just our second year.
This is the second year. So you're saying that we should start seeing results next year, this coming year?
I think we should start seeing results in everything as we get back into the swing of full-time instruction and we start seeing a more direct standards-based instruction. The concerns are more for our student groups who are not performing at the same level.
Yeah.
And that's where the attention needs to be given.
Right.
Many of our students are doing very well, and we want to maintain that, and we want to make sure they continue to do well and are challenged at their level.
Yeah.
We really need to put our attention and our resources in the students who need some extra help and really need us to pay attention
Yeah.
to their individual needs.
I'm glad you recognize that, because I don't want to blame it all on COVID, and I know it's something that we've been talking for years regarding math, So and then with the Latino population and well, in all populations too, I just math just seems to be a hard subject for here at NUSD. So I'm glad that you addressed that and you acknowledge that.
And I do want to recognize that this isn't a new problem. The discrepancies we're seeing between our student groups, as you mentioned, is not a new challenge, and all of our student groups struggled and dropped during COVID fairly evenly, unfortunately. What we need to do is go back to really working on closing that gap.
Yeah, so I look forward to improvement, and there's always room for improvement, and so
Can't wait.
I'm glad that we have this system going, and the efforts of the teachers, and
absolutely.
So thank you.
Trustee Gaston, you want to? We can ask the questions. It doesn't have to be a lot, Galileo.
No.
We whatever you guys got.
You want to do it at the end? Or did you want to ask? Go ahead.
Diane, I was going to let you.
Go ahead. Yeah, we're ready.
So I think it's a year off, but I was looking back at the model that Dr. Derby was talking about, page 1 with the cohorts, because I think it's really helpful, because you what are the kids doing as they're progressing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think my daughter wasn't quite, I think she might have been in second grade in 2015. But one of the things I wonder is specific to the instruction, and I can say, and I feel like, I don't want to be a broken record, but Dr. Derby wasn't here when I've said this before. I remember the struggle from my kids in math, and part of it had to do with the fact that it was a concept that I didn't understand. And I think about this time, there was a change in the instruction for math. So my question is, given that what we're seeing across the groups, it's more, I really do believe we need to support the English language learners and Latinos and stuff as well, that we need to do something about that. But I wonder more globally if there's a revisit of the curriculum or the way that it's being taught, if we've talked about that.
We talk about that all the time. And so what I will say is we are coming up on a math adoption. So we have a math leadership team who's a part of an MCOE consortium who is actually starting to preview some of what that will look like. They don't anticipate there's going to be a lot of changes in standards. Those will stay fairly the same at each grade level. But similar to science and history, where the standards stayed fundamentally the same, but the framework or how we're teaching them looks different, is what we're starting to see more and more from the state. And so I think we'll have more information as that comes out. But I will also say that part of what we've found is, in light of that, teachers are working really hard to come up with ways that are a combination of multiple tools. And so some of that is wonderful, but some of it also leads to some inconsistency where our students are experiencing different things through the system. So the idea is for us to have really consistent topics and learning and strategies that are consistent for the students all the way through, and teachers have some freedom over how they're going to teach it or what tools they're going to use to get to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and I'm actually wondering with this new grading system if that might help a little bit, because what I've noticed is that some students excelled with a different way of teaching. Others, I hate to use my kids as an example, but it was a different process of thinking that it didn't come natural to them. And as they got older, they figured out, it wasn't so much that I have to do it this way. They figured out how, as long as you got where you needed to be. And so I guess that's where I'm asking is if there's, that's being kind of taken a look at, is that kids learn in different ways, but if you come up with the same answer and you can show it or whatever the backing is to do that, that's the end result that you want, not so much that I think we were talking about dots and sticks or something, you know, whatever. I never got it, and I could never support my kids in it because I just didn't, I couldn't get my head around it.
That's actually the root of Common Core math, is that there's multiple ways to get the same answer. And as they go through the system, they should be learning multiple ways, but then given the freedom to use the one that works. And so it depends on if you're at an end goal. So for example, with something like a CAS test that is summative, they can use any strategy they want. But there is some confusion in processing if you're learning multiple, because students are figuring out for themselves what's going to work for them and what's not, and sometimes that takes time. I do think that having some consistent expectations and knowing what the goal is at the end, and then I think it's important to note that not everyone values this assessment the way that we need to help our community understand, as Superintendent Derby mentioned. This is how our schools are judged, large in part. And for many of our students, this assessment does matter for scholarships, for different enrollment that they might be interested in. These scores do matter. And so we often have students who opt out, or we don't prepare them for it. I mean, there is a test-taking skill that is a part of this, and are we actually giving students the opportunity to practice taking assessment or doing the practice questions? One of the beautiful things about CASP and Galileo is they put the questions out there for us, so it's not a surprise. I can go home with my kids tonight and I can take a CASP test and make sure they do know how to do those things, but I don't think that we have, I don't think that we are in the process of building some value around what this actually does to benefit our students. When they go to college and they're coming from a school or a district that has very low achievement scores based on this, that is putting them at a disadvantage to those students who are coming from a district that has very high achievement standards. So that's another piece, is just working on practicing and making sure our students are prepared.
I just want to add that it did get changed, but the 11th grade scores were being used for college entrance, not UC, but for CSU. And that did get taken away through advocacy, but they're important. We need to take them serious. We need to take these tests seriously. But Danny wants to speak over there.
As someone who's taken this test multiple years,
many times,
especially from last year, it was very difficult for me, especially for math, since all my years I've had difficult understanding math, and all my teachers never really taught me anything or prepared me for any sort of Galileo or CAS testing. And that kind of reflected on me and in my test-taking skills. So I'm kind of wondering if there's a way we can really help those ELD students in kind of understanding why this test is important and why they should take it. Because I know at my school, a lot of the ELD students do get pushed aside, and right now leadership is trying to incorporate and trying to help and translate everything, and I'm helping with that. And we feel like sometimes they don't get as much of a word because they can't speak our language.
I couldn't agree more, and I think it's also in practicing. I actually think our EL students do take it very seriously, and I think know that it's important, but I think struggle a great deal because of the language, but also the tools. Mm-hmm. So when you're a student who has different assistances, are we giving students opportunities to know what stacked language looks like? So when I look at a test, I just see normal writing. When one of our EL students chooses stacked language, they're seeing the whole test twice. A line of English, a line of Spanish, a line of English. It's very hard to follow. And are we practicing how to do that? So there are some test-taking skills. And I know that our EL teachers have been really taking that seriously and doing some of this practice work. And I'm hoping to see some support there this year. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
All right.
Because we have one more test to show you.
We have one more test.
And this one will be short. Okay.
All right.
So as we know, we've talked about COVID a lot. Really, one of our goals this year is we knew our students were going to need some really increased services around social emotional learning and mental health. So we expanded our DESA assessment, which we have done in some elementary schools in the lower grades, and this year we did it all schools, kindergarten through 6th grade. And what we found is that our students were in the target range, meaning we had approximately 7 to 8% across the district of our students who really need some higher level needs or instruction. So in looking at this, what you're looking at is the percentage in green is our number of students who are above the norm in their social emotional skills, and I'll let you know what those are in just a moment. The blue is they're in that margin of what we're targeting. And then the red are those students that need some extra help in one or more of the skill areas. What's been wonderful about this year and having our data specialists and our ELO or our MTSS interventionists is they've been pulling small groups and doing interventions with students on the specific social emotional or SEL curriculum skill that they need. They're also doing some small group counseling, and then they're looking at trends across the school. And if there's any significant areas where all of the students in a grade level or across the school are struggling, they're doing classroom lessons. So just to let you know what those are is there's 8 competencies that this measures: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, goal-directed behavior, personal responsibility, decision-making, and optimistic thinking. And for each one of those skills, there's curriculum and lessons that are recommended for each individual student. And so our teachers, our staff, our TOSAs take that information, they look at the student's results, and then they tailor the instruction for that student. All right, and again, I wanted you to see this as compared to student groups. We look at this data in different groups, so I wanted you to see our African American students, our Hispanic Latino students, and then, I thought we had another page, with our, compared to our overall is up above. And so you'll see that we do have some increases. Our gaps are much smaller than we see in our academic gaps. But again, this gives us an eye into where do we need to make sure that we are focusing our goal. The largest distinctions are here with our African American students. This red area is a total of 15 students that are identified here as needing additional supports. And so those 15 students are getting those supports on their individual campuses. All right, any questions about DESA or anything else in general?
Trustee Butler.
Curious how summer school fits into all of this to help with a resource, I guess you could call it.
So I think this is going to be an interesting summer of a mesh between what we've always done and what we hope to do. So as you just approved tonight is an ELOP TOSA. That program is going to have some significant funds, but also some significant restrictions, and those restrictions are actually positive things. It's going to require 30 days of extra learning, and it's going to require us offering a 9-hour school day, and that's going to allow us to really focus on some intervention, some enrichment, and then some high quality summer programs. As you know, we've kind of cobbled together the needs. So we've had credit recovery in high school. We've had our senior credit recovery here. We have an incredible, very robust EL program, our Camp University. But we haven't had a typical summer school that allows for students to get intervention in ELA and math. And so we will continue with Math Bridge. Last year we brought that forward for the first time. We will be able to fund that again this year. It'll be a 5th to 6th grade bridge, an 8th to 9th grade bridge, and an Algebra 1 to Algebra 2 bridge. We are going to look at credit recovery as a centralized program, so we'll have both high school. It's going to be all on the San Marin campus this year because of our construction, but we're actually looking at bringing back some of the in-person instruction, so it's not just online, which would be fantastic. All of this is hinged on staffing. We've exhausted our staff this year, and so I'm hoping that we will have the people to come out and do those programs. But those that are in place are so passionate about the work they do in the summer that I know that they'll continue. But we hope to see some changes over the next couple of years using that ELOP money.
Well, that sounds good. Much better. Yeah,
Yes.
You're right. We've kind of pieced things together and tried to offer some resources to students, but this sounds much more clearer and concise and
hopefully
more broader.
Hopefully has consistency throughout the year,
Yeah.
so that it's not a
Yeah.
start, stop for students who need it.
Can you use any one-time COVID money for anything?
We've been using one-time COVID money for last year's summer and this year's summer, but we'll transition once that money is gone to the ELOP, which is great because we're
push it
hoping
out.
it to be
Yeah.
a more ongoing fund source.
Great. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments on the DESA or any subject at all? Trustee Miller.
Couple of questions. First, I understand you commented we're going to go to San Marin for some of the summer courses. And I know we've been talking to the College of Marin to be able to use their campus for some as well. Are we going to be able to work with them as well as the San Marin campus, or didn't that work out?
We are. We love our College of Marin partners. Aim High, our middle school program, is going to be there, and I think it's the perfect location for that program. They'll have access to the pool, some of the CTE classrooms. They'll have access to some of their student leaders to give some opportunities and enrichment. So yes.
Okay, cool. So the second question is on all these, the review we just finished or are finishing now, the whole state of California has been impacted by COVID, and we're talking about, their impacts here in COVID. So my question is, how do we compare to how it impacted other communities? So are these results normed against all the students in California, and so the norm went down, so we should not do worse than everybody else? Or were these standards-based measures, so as we drop, the standards stay the same and everybody in California is lower? So help me understand what I'm...
So it is a norm reference test. It is California, but if...
It is normed reference? Is that what you said?
Normed, yeah. And so if you look at the one that's on the screen, this can show you our comparison. Now, what we don't have here is the drop for the state. And what you're asking is, did the state drop about the same as what we dropped? And there was similar drops, yes. We also look at this in comparison to our neighboring districts who have, different resources and different needs. But we do a comparison to see what that is. Okay. But we dropped similarly to the state of California. But lower, so we don't think we lower than we'd like to.
Systematically, we're better or worse than the whole state, although we'd like to hope we did better. We'd like to hope, but
we should be better than the state in all areas.
But the drop should be similar. I mean, our population economically overall, maybe we're different than other parts of the state. But having said that, clearly, you've identified some areas where we didn't drop a little bit. I saw some of these columns, they were under our student successes were down under 10%. I mean, they just fell out the bottom. It was like somebody just left them in the room by themselves.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what happened, but it clearly a test score of those. If I read it right, am I reading it correctly? Is that?
It's the percentage of students who are at or above. So, for example, NUSD 2021 EL students had a 0% of those students met or exceeded standard on the assessment.
Which means they're all below standard.
That means they're all below or near, but yes, none of them met standard.
It didn't say near, it just said below. The test was below or not below. They could have been this much below or this much below, but they're below.
They're below. They are below standard.
So clearly that's an area that you've brought to our attention with the intention of not just talking about it, but fixing it.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought I was reading. And it looks like there's a couple of specific populations that... Do you think it's because lack of technology or lack of facilities with technology, or... I mean, have you thought, okay, we got to fix this? What's your next level of diagnostic in terms of what are we?
I don't think it's about technology. I think it's about direct, tailored instruction for students and monitoring and retesting and reteaching and ongoing. That's the success that I saw in San Rafael.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's what I'm looking for.
It's also discussing the test. So part of this is, knowing that this is important and students understanding the difference between X and Y is this percentage on your test. And what I found is some of the intervention just about going over their scores and talking to them about what it is and why it's important.
Talking to them, the student, to them, the instructor.
The students. So the students need to have an understanding of why they take this test, and there needs to be value in them trying hard.
And you think in Nevada we're missing that conversation?
Danny's giving you a big nod.
Yes. Danny's answering the question for us.
She apparently thinks we missed the conversation.
If you look at our grades versus our tests, you see a huge discrepancy.
Yeah, we don't really get a lot of feedback on why we have to take this test, so a lot of people opt out. I remember my sophomore year, a bunch of juniors were like, why do I need this test? like it's not important. They're not simple stuff like that. So we had a lot of students opt out. I think it was like 50 or probably even
Big number,
more.
yeah.
It was a big number. But I remember not a lot of teachers were like discussing or telling us this is a test that's important for you guys because of this, this or that, and your test scores matter. We never got that kind of like talk. It was mostly just like, oh yeah, you guys have a test. That's it. So
Interesting. So, sounds like a miss that we can actually address. Thanks.
We have opportunities to improve.
And I'm glad to see that the authority in the room is sitting next to me. This is good.
Yes, she is the authority.
Thanks.
Maria wants to say something. And then we...
Okay. Do we?
It just makes me think that if there were so many students that opt out and that were missing this information, maybe the scores would be even lower.
It's possible. I will say the students who in the year Danny is speaking of, it overlapped with AP testing. And so the students opted out so that they would be well rested for AP tests.
That's just a calendaring situation, and we can fix that. That's an easy fix. Yeah.
We have lots of window of opportunity and how we plan it and how we plan for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is, at this point, information and discussion, and I think that you guys heard, we heard what you had to say, and I think we'll be in support of the measures that you're about to bring forward. One of the things I noticed we didn't touch on very much that I think should be mentioned is Dr. Mohammed, equity audits are still coming forward, and we're going to be looking at those results and hopefully making some changes along those lines. So appreciate everybody's participation on this issue, and if there are no more questions or comments on this agenda item, I am prepared to adjourn. Okay, we are adjourned.